morning, everyone. We're going to get started. I'm Ken Fadner, Chairman of MediaPost. Welcome to MediaPost Brand Marketers Insider Summit. It's the winter/spring version of a continuing series. Hope that you have a great week this week. And the first time it's actually not our first time in Austin, it's our first time in Austin with this summit. And we deliberately, of course, positioned it next to South by Southwest. And I know that you'll hear about this from our MC a little later, but we have a big program on Saturday at South by Southwest as well. So we're here for the whole week. We hope you are here with us as much as you can be. And so you'll hear more about MediaPost and our summits a bit later. We do have our breakfast and sponsor, Sulligent, who's been a great supporter of MediaPost events over the past, actually probably in their predecessor company, Strongview, for a dozen years or more. And we really appreciate their support over all these years. And they're a great supporter of this event. They jumped in as soon as we started doing the Brand Marketer Summit. And you're going to hear this morning from Nick Worth, who's the CMO of Sulligent. I'm sure you'll enjoy his presentation. Nick? Gotta watch where you stand or you're blinded by the light.
Hi, good morning. As Ken said, I'm Nick Worth. I'm the CMO of Sulligent, which is an omnichannel automation, marketing automation platform. I'm going to talk about what we see as the biggest challenge for marketers today. To get into that, I want to start with cereal, because it's breakfast time. And when I was a kid, I ate a lot of breakfast. And more specifically, I ate a lot of cereal because my mother worked, my father worked, and there really wasn't much time or attention to getting the kids out of the house, so the easiest thing to do was cereal. And cereal is cool. This is in Shoreditch, in London, where I live. This is the Serial Killer Cafe. This is a place where you go to eat cereal, served from a box. You pay about £4 or £5. Broad array of cereal choices, like 150. Wide range of milk and sweetener choices. And they cook it up for you. They pour the cereal into a bowl, hand it to you, add some milk, and that's your meal. And this place is cool. How do I know it's cool? Because these are the guys that run it. This is Alan and Gary Neely, a couple guys from Northern Ireland who moved to London to start the Serial Killer Cafe. And these guys are like the poster childs for cool millennials, right? This is craft, this is authentic. These guys have some serious ink. Like, you can feel that these guys are cooler than you, or at least I can feel how much cooler they are than I am. And they've got a great business. It's meant to kind of resemble a kitchen. I don't know if you can see up there, that's one of my favorite products of all time. Millennials? I don't know how many of you remember Millennials, but Millennials are Cheerios for the millennium, with every fourth Cheerios are round, pulled out and substituted with a 2-shaped. So you could see the year 2000 floating in your cereal bowl. And if you go to eBay, you can buy yourself some Millennials. So it's super cool, this cereal thing. It's super convenient, and yet ready-to-eat cereal sales are plummeting. It's a huge crisis for the cereal makers in the US. Why do people not eat cereal anymore? And the biggest single reason is this. People don't eat cereal because it's too hard. It's too much work. Okay, so think about that. All of us, or at least me, I'll stick with me. I ate cereal as a kid, and then when I went to college, I ate cereal because it was the easiest breakfast I knew how to make, right? Didn't involve cooking, milk, bowl, spoon. Our friends, the millennials, think it's too hard to make cereal because there's a bowl at the end, and you have to clean it, right? It's not sufficiently convenient anymore. And what's taking off is food bars, because you don't have to clean up after yourself. You just eat it and chuck the wrapper, right? And it's sort of the same thing. Okay, so my point here is what was once a successful product for its convenience is now becoming unsuccessful because it is not sufficiently convenient anymore. In other words, the metrics have changed for all of us. And I think instinctively we all feel this as marketers. We call this phenomenon the entitled consumer. Consumers who think, like me, that you're entitled to a special privilege. I got into an idiotic conversation a few months ago with some of my colleagues. We were looking at the Uber app and bitching about how the little icon of the car lags sometimes as much as 4 or 5 seconds behind the actual location of the car. Think about that. Think about what Uber represents, forgetting the political stuff and sexual harassment and all the horrible things about Uber. Think about Lyft if you prefer. But thinking about a ride-sharing service which gets you anywhere you want to go with that level of convenience, all on your phone, don't have to talk to a driver, receipt emailed to you, all that stuff. And now we're pissed off because the little depiction of the car lags by about 4 seconds behind where the car might actually be. Okay, that's what we expect. That's what we think we deserve now. We expect real-time customer service. This is a survey from 2014. 90% of us think we should be able to get serviced whenever we want. We expect automatic payments and checkouts. We expect that within a few more years, we'll all be able to get same-time delivery on everything, right? We expect everything to be personalized, and this is highly relevant to this audience. That people expect brands to know them and to deliver against their knowledge of who they are. And they expect, half of people expect brands to ship them stuff before they ask for it. This is an actual category of e-commerce called anticipatory commerce. It's a real thing. It's also sort of crazy that consumers are thinking that you will get stuff without even asking for it, kind of like mom. She'll just know. The brand will just know. So whether or not that's reasonable isn't my point, and whether or not we're actually going to be able to do that, also not my point. My point is that's what people are thinking brands ought to do for them. Personalization is critical. There's a lot of reasons why Chipotle is winning and McDonald's is losing, but at the heart of it is that Chipotle figured out how to give you a custom meal super fast. Now, it's also healthier and it's got other advantages, but fundamentally, when you go to Chipotle, they make it to exactly the specifications you have. The problem with the Big Mac is they're all the same. The Big Mac served a convenience thing. You get through drive-through in 60 seconds, right? It served certain markets where people wanted to order a lot of food through the anonymity of drive-through, right? But it couldn't personalize. The McDonald's model breaks when you try to deliver personalization, and Chipotle figured that out. Okay, so what are we really talking about? Millennials, Gen Z, they want more, and specifically, they reject identification, this very identification I'm doing when referring to the ink and the beards and all that. They are not a segment. This is an insulting picture with the watch cap and the guy with the beard. Millennials think, quite reasonably enough, that brands should identify them not as part of a generation, but as individual people with tastes and preferences. And furthermore, they're willing to give up their privacy to get that understanding, right? So they expect brands to deliver a personalized, individualized experience just to them because they're not a millennial, they're me. Person who brand knows because they have all this data on me. I get how it works, says a millennial. Grandma's concerned about retargeting banner ads that follow her around the internet. Granddaughter just wants the brand to act on all the data that they have. Okay, so what does the entitled consumer want? They want convenience, they want value, and they want relevance. But it goes beyond entitlement. Everybody's connected all the time. Media is cheap. Email's cheap. And consumers are getting hit hard, like 10 times as hard as they were 40 years ago. We get 5,000 brand impressions a day. Our attention span has fallen down to about 8 seconds, putting us just slightly behind goldfish that are somewhere between 9 and 10 seconds. Millennials and Gen Xers, Gen Zers have a thing called continuous partial attention. This is the phenomenon where you are listening to multiple devices at the same time in some sort of passive receiving mode. So you're hanging out, you've got something on a screen, you've got your phone, you might be even reading an old school magazine or whatever, and you're looking at all of those things at once, receiving messages on various social platforms, and your mode is to try to find the signal amidst all the noise. It is super hard to break through to somebody who's in that CPA mode. Then there's a language problem, right? There's a younger person who texts back TLDR, my favorite internet acronym, TLDR, which means too long, didn't read. Wasn't addressed to me in a way that I could understood or absorb, right? It's really important that we figure out how we're going to talk to people who are coming back at us with TLDR. Because we have a lot to say, but we may not have the ability to communicate that to our audience. Meanwhile, we're doing our old thing. We're going with mass media. We're presuming a consumer journey is universal when we know that it's not. We treat everybody like a number, and we don't act in the moment, and it really is all about moments. This is from Google.
Do you hear a clicking or a grinding sound when you turn the key?
So how are we going to connect with people in the moment? We think that what you need to do is change the way you think about marketing, and what we call that approach is consumer first. And the idea of consumer first is you start with the individual's needs, right? Rather than a channel strategy, rather than a product strategy, rather even than a cohort strategy like 18 to 34-year-old women or something like that. You start with trying to figure out what a person needs in a particular moment and serve up engagement to that very specific individual in the need state that they happen to be in at the time. So what do? We respect consumer preferences. We deliver content that is relevant to that person and relatable in a language system to that person. We give them something of actual value. And finally, we make sure that it's relevant to the moment that they're actually in at that time, right? So let me try to tee up some examples. So on the preference point, this is a client of ours in Holland. That's a Dutch, it's a European-wide cinema chain called Canopolis. And what Canopolis does is it asks you when you register to state a lot of preferences, register to be a moviegoer with them, but more than that, they're very, very careful in their tracking so that when they communicate to you, they suggest movies and offers that they think will appeal to you very specifically. And we have some great customer stories of people saying, well, I said I was into art house films and Woody Allen, but they kept serving me these rom-com things, and I kept going because I actually like rom-coms. I just don't think that I like rom-coms. It's not part of my view of myself, but it is actually part of my behavior, and I end up going to these movies because the algorithm's smart enough to understand what I like. We want content that's relatable. So banks, I'm going to show you a banking example in a second. So banks like to get in with consumers just as they're entering or leaving university because that's the moment at which you can connect with them for a lifetime. So our customer ING was trying to think about how do we get in with sort of 21-year-olds. And they realized that in Europe, what 21-year-olds do is go to music festivals a lot in the summer. And when they go to these music festivals, they have a series of very specific problems. There's no place to park. There's no place to put their stuff. There are no clean toilets, right? And there are all these kind of distractions and inconveniences that prevent you from enjoying the experience of going to the concert. So ING built these things full of lockers, toilets, parking, and a bunch of social media sharing tools so that people would say, and you just had to give up your email address to be part of it. And as a result, they drove huge uptick both in brand visibility amongst their target audience, but also a lot of signups of new customers who, if patterns hold, will remain with them for decades. You also need to deliver value. So a friend of mine got called by GoDaddy the other day, and GoDaddy said, we see that you have a bunch of URLs with us. He's got URLs for all his family members and stuff, and they're all synced on different timelines, and it's all very messy. Why don't we put everything on a single contract, we'll cut the price by 40%, and we'll sync the timeline so you have one renewal cycle every 2 years. You'll save a ton of money, and you'll save all this administration hassle. And while his initial reaction when he picked up the phone was, oh shit, I shouldn't have answered the phone, it's a provider, oops. At the end of it, he signed up, he renewed with them, he extended his contract, and he felt like they cared about him because they had taken the trouble to see that he had all these different relationships with them that needed to be rationalized. And then the final thing is being contextually relevant. And this is in some ways the hardest. So I'm going to give you an easy example of contextual relevance, which we can take from there. One of our clients is Redfin, the real estate broker. Real estate is a tricky vertical because you have dealings with your customers every 5 to 10 years they do a transaction. They may never do another transaction with you. But Redfin came up with this automated contextual program, which was based on zip code. When someone bought a new house with them, the first time it snowed, they would shoot off an email to them, right? And the email would say, oh my God, it snowed on your house for the first time. Isn't that cool? Send us a picture. Having any problems with the roof or the pipes or stuff, we can recommend, obviously they're not in the business of providing services, but they're like, we can recommend somebody to you, let us know. But we really hope you're enjoying this and make sure to tell all your family and friends about your first snow day in your new house. This is an easy campaign to set up with some contextual zip code weather stuff, and it feels very personal. Because when you wake up, at least the first time I woke up in a house with the snow on the roof that I owned, I thought, oh my God, is the roof gonna hold up, was my first thought. And my second thought was, it looks so beautiful, all clean. Can't tell the gutters are full of leaves and stuff. So I think that's a cool example. So let me get to the pitch quickly. We're Selligent. It's a European originated marketing automation platform. Our key characteristics all work in support of consumer-first marketing. Everything is built around the individual consumer, not the channel. A lot of our competitors have tool sets that were built channel by channel. Ours was built around the individual consumer and a multi-channel approach to him. We have what we call insight-led engagement, which means that as you're gathering data about people, it automatically feeds into the next messaging cycle that you have so that you're consistently growing and learning. You need to have a behavioral tool in your arsenal. What are people doing on your website? That is a key trigger to how you personalize messaging because it's the most recent data that you have. It can't all come from your CRM and transactional data. You need recency, you need behavior. We've got analytics and reporting to drive the knowledge that you need to do well. And we, of course, have a tool that's got very limited dependence on IT because we know what that means. And finally, this is our business. We're in the relationship marketing business. So we're totally focused on providing the service, support, and guidance from consumer first all the way down to the way that we organize our services teams. So happy to talk to you over the course of the event. My colleague Zach is here as well. There's Zach. Come say hello. We look forward to meeting you and talking to you. Thanks very much.
All right. Nick, thank you very much as always. As Nick says, if you guys have any questions for him about what they do, grab him. You're going to be here for the duration? Okay, so Nick's here the whole time. Where's Zach? Raise your hand back there. There's Zach back there. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Grab those guys if you have questions about who they are and what they're doing. And again, thanks for the continued support. We're going to take about 5 minutes here just to refresh your coffees and pass out some more materials, and then we'll get going with the rest of the day. Thanks.